welcome back to another 10-minute tips and tricks webinar from the Curriculum Center for Family and Consumer Sciences. Today, we're exploring how AI can help us transform traditional rubrics into student-friendly tools that are clear, motivating, and supportive without lowering the rigor. Rubrics are powerful instructional tools, but sometimes the language we use can unintentionally create confusion instead of clarity. So today, I'm going to show you a simple 3-step process to remix a rubric using AI. So you may be thinking, why remix rubrics? Is that just going to be one more step that I have to complete? Well, students often struggle to interpret rubric language. Terms like adequate, sufficient, or good organization may make sense to us, but not always to them. Sometimes criteria are vague or overly formal, and when that happens, rubrics can feel evaluative instead of supportive. Most importantly, language influences motivation and equity. When expectations are transparent and written in accessible language, students are more likely to understand how to improve. That's where AI can become a helpful design partner. Now here is the simple process. Create, refine, remix. We'll start by generating or locating a rubric, then revise it for clarity and fairness, and finally refresh the tone so it connects with today's learners, while keeping expectations exactly the same. So the first step is to create a rubric with AI, or you can use one that already exists. To create with AI, you can use any AI chatbot such as ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Magic School, or many others, and paste in a clear starter prompt aligned to your learning goal. You'll notice in the middle of the screen that I've given you a ChatGPT prompt example, where you can fill in the information about the task or skill you want the rubric for, along with a place to insert the standard or learning goal you would like to align this with. You can also start with an already prepared rubric, such as the variety of rubrics that we offer from the Curriculum Center for Family and Consumer Sciences webpage, which you can access with the QR code on your screen. The key is starting with structure aligned to a clear objective. So let me show you an example of one that I created with AI. In this case, I used ChatGPT, and I wanted to do a culinary arts biscuit lab. So I asked AI to create a rubric for a biscuit lab for 10th through 12th grade students, including 4 performance levels with observable descriptors, and align this to basic production procedures for yeast and quick bread products. So that standard actually comes from Advanced Culinary Arts TEKS or standards in Texas. So this first draft gives us a strong starting point. You'll notice that for the criteria, it made all of those up based on the standard that we wanted to set for the lab. It decided to grade the student on preparation, demonstration of quick bread procedure, sanitation and safety practices, time management, organization, product quality, so the appearance and texture, and then evaluation and reflection. And then, like I prompted, it gave us 4 different levels. We have advanced, proficient, developing, and beginning. So like I said, the first draft gives us a starting point, but it's rarely perfect. This is where step 2 is going to come in. Step 2 is to refine. So we're going to use the same rubric example that we did before, but this is where teacher expertise is essential. So we're going to revise to improve clarity, remove any vague language, ensure clear contrast between each level, and then we're also going to check for accessibility and readability. So you can notice the prompts that I have placed in ChatGPT. So using that same rubric that it created first, I told it to revise this rubric to be specific, measurable, and student-friendly. Replace vague words with observable behaviors. And you can see what it has created. So it's a lot more descriptive in the different levels. So for example, here's another thing that it could say. Instead of saying something like demonstrates good technique, it might revise it to measures ingredients accurately using proper leveling technique. So notice that that's something you could actually observe, and measure. And then that specific language supports student understanding and fair grading. All right, now comes the fun part. We're going to remix the tone. This is important. We are not changing our expectations. We are not lowering rigor. We are simply refreshing how the rubric communicates. So we can rename performance levels. We can also ask it to add supportive how to level up tips. We can use language that feels welcoming rather than intimidating. And this helps students to see rubrics as growth tools rather than judgment tools. So notice that the prompts that I'm going to give ChatGPT says, please remix this rubric to reflect a blank tone, keep expectations the same, refresh tone and examples, and rename levels creatively. Add supportive tips. So let's see what it creates. So I ended up changing the tone to a Gen Alpha tone. Like I said, I wanted to keep expectations the same. I want that rigor to still be there, but I also want it to be in a language that appeals to our learners for today. And so you'll see that it has changed those levels to different words. So we have our master baker mode, which is kind of meaning that they exceed the standard. We have on a roll, which means they meet the standard. In progress means they're approaching the standard, and dough needs help would be below standard. Another good thing that it created for us was the supportive tips. So these are some great things that the students can read before they start the lab, talking about how different parts of the process can affect the overall product that they get. So not only is it giving us a rubric that is more appealing to today's students, but also those supportive tips to help motivate the students. And Gen Alpha is just one glow up possibility. There are several others. For example, you could use a superhero theme. Notice that this one titled it Rise of the Quick Bread Heroes Edition, where you have Master of the Oven, Rising Hero, Hero in Training, and Civilian Status. The next one is a gamer theme. Maybe you have a lot of students that are into gaming, and it changed the title for Level Up, Quick Bread Quest Edition. You have a legendary baker, a pro player in the game, or respawn needed. There's also creator social media tone. How many of us have students that want to be a social media influencer? So this may be a really appealing to a lot of our students, and it titled it Bake It, Post It, Perfect It Edition. We have the viral baker era on the feed, in draft, and needs a repost. And then the last one that I'm going to give you an example of is sports theme. If we have some athletes in our classes, or maybe it's a certain time of the year, like for example, I used football sports theme for this last one, and so it named it Friday Night Bites Edition. And we have our all-star starter, our varsity player, junior varsity, and on the bench. So you'll see that there's all kinds of possibilities for remixing our rubrics and helping them to still have that rigor and those expectations, but making it a little bit more appealing and motivating for our students. Again, expectations remain consistent. We're simply making assessment language relatable and engaging. So you may be asking, why does this matter? Well, because assessment is communication. Rubrics are not just scoring tools, they are instructional tools. They communicate expectations, define quality, and guide improvement. When we use clear, observable language, we increase transparency and fairness. When we adjust that tone to be supportive rather than intimidating, we influence motivation. AI can help us refine and redesign more efficiently, but teacher expertise remains central. We are not outsourcing judgment, we are strengthening design. So here's your challenge. I encourage you to remix one rubric this week. We're not redesigning your whole grading system, just one rubric. Choose something you're already using. Run it through the create, refine, remix process. Then reflect. Did your clarity improve? How did our students respond? Did they respond differently? Did the tone feel more supportive while keeping rigor intact? You might be surprised how much clearer your expectations feel and just how differently your students respond. Remember, keep the rigor, refresh the tone. Thank you for joining me in another 10-minute tips and tricks session. I'll see you in the next webinar.